Good evening, everyone. It's me, Chanel. I'm coming to you live from downtown Jax for episode 4 of The Prescription. How you guys doing tonight? All right, so today the topic is the 3 types of marriage. And today I decided to delve into different types of marriages. These are just 3 that I chose. There's no right, wrong way. But I just wanted to identify some main ones and to kind of address some of the issues, some of the roles, some of the parenting and pros and cons of how these work. And I did identify 3 types. That's the traditional, the independent, and the modern. And I want to preface this before moving on. There is nothing wrong with any of these structures or any structures that I did not mention. If done properly, both people are willing participants. Do what works best for your household. I just wanted to touch on some of the good and bad of each so to enlighten you if you're not married yet or if you're looking to get married. The good and the bad so you can know what you're getting yourself into, as well as for those who are already in their marriages or in their relationships, because this can apply to certain relationships too. If you're unhappy, I can help you identify some dynamic issues that need to be addressed and how you may be able to fix them and save your marriage. Because in the end, I'm pro-marriage, I'm for longevity, and I feel if it can be saved, give your all, do all you can. I know sometimes it's a mismatch, but do what you got to do to save your marriage. So let's dive in. The first one is traditional. And this is your basic idea of marriage where the husband is the breadwinner and the wife, she's the housewife and she takes care of the home. The wife is the main attendee of the kids and does all the cooking and cleaning and the general care of the family. The husband works and he tends to the yard, the general maintenance of the house and the cars. So in this, the pros of this particular dynamic is the roles are clearly defined. They tend to spend a lot of time together outside of work in the house. Most times they have a mindset of marriage longevity. They have a very set structure, is very rigid. Because it's traditional, these roles do not change. That means the husband is always the provider, the wife is always the housewife. It's stable for the kids because, and even for the husband and wife because they know what to expect. This doesn't change. The wife tends to be the nurturer. She makes sure the house runs, everybody's attended to. And the husband tends to the needs of the house. He tends to make sure everything's fixed, finances, things of that nature. So let's get into some of the issues that can arise. Like I say, this is not all, and it falls for each category. This is not going to be all the issues as well as not going to be all the pros. And this does not apply to everybody's situation. This is just some generals from a bunch of different situations. So in this particular situation, there tends to be a disconnect in the marriage because a husband may tend to separate himself from the day-to-day of the kids. In that provider role, they tend to provide for the kids, make sure the kids have what they need for band practice, soccer games to go on, but they don't necessarily take on the actual time and care that may be needed from that provider role. He also may not recognize the work that his wife does, and it can go from being very appreciative in the beginning to diminishing over time to feeling like a thankless role. Also, being that he is the provider, if something happens financially or something happens at his job or his career or whatever, or they acquire more debt, then he can feel that emotional burden because he's the provider, and it can have a toll on his mental health as well. Now, as far as the wife, the cons of that, in this particular situation, she can become codependent because of the financial status, the status they have, the value that she puts in the husband, and especially because he becomes the center. So in this particular structure, she becomes dependent on him. And this can have a very negative effect if something happens to him. He gets hurt or he gets sick or he can no longer work. She's not adapt to handle it. As well as financially, if she's not used to handling the financial responsibilities as far as paying the bills or making those financial decisions, and he's unable to do it, it can be a very, very big emotional shock and toll on her trying to take and step into that role. And moving into finances, some housewives, not all, some housewives are very reckless financial wise because of the fact that they don't bring in the money, they don't necessarily calculate it properly, or they may not really know how much is really coming in. And so, plus two, they want to entertain because their husbands may not be as home as much, or he comes home, he's tired, he wants to chill. So they spend money on entertaining, spend money on things you need and things you don't need. Also, between the two of them, there can be a lack of appreciation for these roles because of the fact that they are clearly defined. There's no ambiguity between the roles. So people go from, in the beginning, again, like saying, being very appreciative, to like, you're supposed to do it. It just becomes monotonous and mundane, and it's just every day, and it becomes thankless. As well as it can lead to a lack of intimacy or a lack of attention between the two, because people start feeling underappreciated and they begin to become disgruntled in their roles and disgruntled or upset at their mate. So to close this one out, the chances of longevity in this marriage are mid-level to high, because coming in, most of them have the mindset of marriage for life, and they're willing to make attempts when it doesn't work out. Also, even if they don't make attempts, because of the fact that they have already defined these roles, they're willing to stay even if they're unhappy. That's not healthy, because you want to fix it, but that's just reality. The next dynamic is independent. This is more of a switch from the traditional back in the day to more closer to modern, but this is where both parents work. This is where the wife and the husband are providers. They are work first oriented. They are your power couples. In this, the pros of this particular marriage structure is they have significant income. They have financial flow. They tend to go on vacations. They're what you call that idealistic family. They have the possessions because they have the money coming in. But they also put a big emphasis on the career first. They put a big emphasis on finances first. They put a big emphasis on status first. They also don't, unless they work together, they don't spend a lot of time together because they're working so much. So when they do, they tend to have better communication of how to make things work, and they may have a good level of intimacy. Now, the issues with this is because they're both working, the biggest sufferers in this style is the kids. They don't have time for them. They will provide, make sure they have good education, shoes, clothes, books, piano, whatever they need, but them. And at the end of the day, being a parent, this structure is very detrimental long term to your kids, because they need you there. It's not what you can buy, it's your time, and you can't buy time. Also, cooking. If you love those home cooked meals, you're not going to get it in this relationship very often, because both of them working, they tired. We either going out to eat at a restaurant or y'all going to get takeout. Like, it's not going to happen. As well as the main focus, like I say, is on their jobs, is on their career, or is it on their societal status, or if they're big in nonprofits, is on their philanthropy work. So possessions tend to become higher. Money tends to become higher. Everything becomes higher than making sure it's a family-oriented feel. So the family structure is not prevalent in this. And the chances of longevity in this particular marriage is usually the lowest and has a greater chance of divorce in the end. And that's for several reasons. One of the main reasons is because of them being so independent, they're not willing to work. They're usually butt-headed and they can butt heads. Number two, they don't have the tendency to stick it out because they have options. And they don't always see the value in staying unless the value in staying has something to do with their status or their career or their money. All right, so the last area we're going to touch on is modern. And to me, modern is the closest to what a marriage structure that I would be looking for would want to be. Again, these are just my opinions. This is not everybody's situation, and nobody's is right or wrong. But to me, this is one that is based where there are no roles defined. This means everybody does what is necessary. If the husband needs to work right now while the wife gets a business off the ground, and he's helping pick up some slack while she gets the business off the ground, that needs to be done. If the husband is going to school because he's finished switch careers, so he's doing things to the house and he's going to school, and she's picking up the financial slack and some of the other things that he can't do, that's what needs to be done. They're family first oriented. So this one right here is better as far as the dynamic of the whole family, because the kids get all their needs met. They get the financial support as well as they get the attention and time of their parents that they need, because kids need you. Need money to buy things, but money it's not that important. It's just a method to get what we need. All right. And so in this situation, they're very adaptable. both parents are adaptable, husband and wife are willing to compromise, they're willing to work together. And that goes so long when you're talking about relationships. So the pros in this is their team. They literally work as a team. You're going to get home cooking in this one. They may not eat out as much because they may not have as much financial wiggle room. They may. It just depends on what they're doing. But, you know, you get that home cooking. They eat out less, but they tend to show more appreciation to each other because of the fact everybody knows everybody's role, so they know how hard it is. And they know that, hey, I need to throw a compliment out every now and then, or every day, honestly, really. I need to say, I'm appreciate you, thank you. You know, just the things, because you see roles from different sides once you're actually in it. It's just like looking at a glass from different perspectives. Once you step into that role, you realize how hard that role is. And you can give appreciation that you may not have given before because you didn't know it was that difficult. They also can live very comfortable, but they may not get as high on the career scale. It may not, because some people are able to do this, but they put monetary below happiness. They put the household first, and that's a major pro. Now let me get into some cons, because that can also be an issue as well. That can be a con too, and I'm going to get on that as well. One thing about this is they tend to be too family oriented. And what I mean by that is they spend more time doing things with the kids, and they tend to have a lack of intimacy between them. Kids come first, family come first, household come first. Beautiful. But you have to have time for husband and wife to keep it continuing. You also don't see the self-care time in this one as well too. They don't spend much time apart. They usually, everybody's always together in some form of fashion, in some way. They also may not, again, progress as high career-wise because they prefer a work-life balance over career advancement, over monetary advancement. Now, this is not for everybody because some can do it, but a lot, they be like, hey, I got to make sure my work-life balance, I got to make sure my home life is straight versus this job. And that can be a pro or a con depending on the situation. And in this particular marriage, the chances of longevity in this one is really high. And the reason I say it's high is because of the compromise factor. In the end, when you address your feelings and you attack what's going on, it allows the opportunity for problems not to grow. They don't go from an ant to a mountain, you know, because it gets attacked at some point before it gets out of hand, hopefully in the beginning. Plus just appreciation between roles, people willing to sacrifice, and sacrifice is very important in marriage. People not being selfish all the time. Sometimes you have to have time to yourself, but you also can't be selfish all the time and think it's all about one person or one thing or one way. You have to be open. So with all that being said, no matter what type of marriage you're going to be in, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be pros, cons, hills, curves, all that stuff. But the goal in the end is to not give up, and it's to fix it. I just identified some things, some brief things, but these things can go deeper, but things can be addressed in any situation if the people are willing to communicate, the people are willing to actually change and adapt, and you want to. Because in the end, all the talking, all that doesn't work if you don't want to make it work. So what I would say is I identified these things, and I want you to know that in life, everything changes. Your relationship is going to change as you get older, as you have different situations in society, in economics, in finances, as your kids grow up, as they move out, like as certain things happen in your family, there's going to be changes everywhere around you. So you have to be fluid. And being fluid and being adaptive, being compromising, all that things, it would allow you to have a long-lasting marriage. And that's the goal. As always, it's love and light. Thank you for tuning in tonight. You have a wonderful day.